Hey, welcome back to Rob's Garage Woodworking. Today we're going to take out a rear shock from my 17 Civic. This is the 10th generation Civic, so it's 2016 to 2020. It's a pretty simple job because there's only 3 bolts to take out, but you never know, right? So we'll go through it, see how it goes. So the tools that I'm going to need for this are a ratchet, 17 mil socket, a long extension with a 12 mil socket, smaller ratchet, and we are going to need a 5 mil hex bit or an Allen key. You can use an Allen key. I find the hex bits are really good. If you have a chance, get a set of these on sale. They're well worth the money. Okay. 14 mil wrench, 17 mil gear wrench, and then just a long 17 mil combination wrench. Phillips screwdriver, a stubby one is easier to take the cowls off. I'm going to use the drill with the Phillips bit. Possibly my impact gun. Definitely some anti-seize compound. A 19 mil impact socket and an impact gun to take off the wheels. You could use a braking bar for that just as well. And then a grommet puller, because if I have to take off the cowl on the inside of the wheel well, you're going to need a grommet puller, or a pair of side cutters. Small side cutters kind of work. You can grab them with the side cutters and kind of wiggle them out. Sometimes a grommet puller with a bent tip is really good. If you buy the Mastercraft, the big Mastercraft screwdriver set, it comes with the grommet puller. And then an adjustable torque wrench. Alright, so first step, I'm going to chock the wheels. So I put a brick behind, a brick in front, and I kick them underneath. Then you're going to want to put your jack in. There's that flange there that the jack cup is mounted under. Okay, that's your jack point. That sticks down a little bit lower than the rest of your frame, and it's usually doubled up. Okay, like it's thicker. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen the lug nuts on the wheel if you don't have a impact driver. So what you want to do is give them about a 1 turn, or 3/4 of a turn, right? And skip a bolt, go to the next one. And it's easier if you use a braking bar, a long bar. And if you have an impact driver, then you can skip that step. What you can do is just jack your car up. So you're going to jack it up so the wheel's off the ground by 1 inch or so. Now sometimes these are hard to take off because they rust or corrode to your brakes, to your hub. So you can give it a good swift kick. I've just done my brakes, so I'll be able to pull that right off. So now I'm going to put in an axle stand right under here. And I'll put it right there, right under that frame member. And if the jack should fail, that'll pick up the weight. Alright, so if you look at the shock here, it's oily. So because it's oily, that means that it's leaking. Okay, so you can see all the oil that's run down the shock. It's wet. Alright, but just on the shock, nothing else is wet, just the shock is wet. So that means the shock is bad. So we're going to take it out. Now it has 1 bolt right here on the bottom. So this guy right here, there's a bolt there. I'm going to pop that bolt out. And then up here, which I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, there's 2 bolts up there we got to take out. Alright, so this is a 17 mil. Alright, so now I'm going to take the inner cowl out because you really can't get to the bolts up there. So we have 1, 2, 3 screws here. Got a couple of screws there. We have 1 bolt. We have 2-stage grommets, 2-stage grommet, Christmas tree grommet, 2-stage grommet, 2-stage grommet. Alright, so the top bolts up here, there's 2 of them. They're 12 mil. So instead of taking off the cowl like I did, I would suggest that you just rip a hole in the cowl up at the top, around here, and around here a little bit. So yeah, just be careful on this side because that's the gas filler tube. So you want to be careful of that. But that's where your bolts are there and on the other side, almost behind the shock. Right, so we want to pull this rubber boot off, so just squeeze it and pry it and pull. And then that's just kind of stuck on there. And there's this other cover. This thing is on a bit of an angle. So we'll get a screwdriver and just kind of push it inside and then pry it out. And save that cap. Alright, so I've got my 14 mil socket. I put that in. I put this 5 mil bit in. I used a hammer to make sure that I hammered it all the way in. And then I put the ratchet on. And then I fought with it, and now it's loose. And it actually looks like you're tightening it up, but that's the way the threads are, so you're actually, when it looks like you're tightening it up, you're actually loosening it. So there we go. So now I've just got to pry this off now. Oh, there we go. And you got to save your cap. So this is your cap, your fancy cap. Alright, so here's the new shock. And say contents are under pressure. So that always makes me nervous. And it just raises up by itself. Okay. Oh, and it has a nut. So I don't need this nut anymore. Now we do have to put this boot on. So let's put the boot on. And it just fits underneath these little tabs here. So you just kind of fit it in and that's it. So put that in. And then just crank my, I'm using a workmate. I'll take the nut off. I'll slide this in. Okay. I'm going to put the nut back on. The nut has a lock washer in it. It's got like one of the plastic washers. So this has to go all the way down. So it looks like you're loosening it, but you're actually tightening it. So we're going to put this in here. Okay. Now the torque on this, like I say, I don't actually know the torque on this, so it was relatively tight, but this is a Allen key, so it's not going to be super tight. We just want it tight. Okay, so pop this off. Once again, because it's an Allen key, it's kind of a stupid design. So, because they always get stuck. So make sure it's all the way in when you do that. Little cap sits on top. That just snaps in. And then this, you pull it up. And you have to pull it all the way up around here. Remove retainer string before starting installation. Shock absorbers should be installed, same as those being replaced. Nitrogen gas under low pressure within the shock may seep into the working chamber during storage. Blah, 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 blah. So what they want you to do is push the shock absorber down and then let it come up. So you got to push it all the way down. Let it rise. Push it all the way down again. Let it rise. So you want to cycle this a few times. And then magically it'll be perfect. Then we reinstall it. Alright, so after I hand start it, I'm just going to use my impact gun and just tighten them up a bit, save some time. Once again, like I said, I don't have the torque specs on these. So I'm just going to hand tighten them to what I think is good. They're not really big bolts. So I'm just going to tighten them up snug. Okay. And I put the bottom one in, and there's a little lip on that. So lift it up, pull it in on the lip, and once again, the big bolt, we're just going to give it a little bit of anti-seize compound. Not a ton, just a little bit. Put that in and tighten that up. And this one's a fairly large bolt, because the spring is in the way. Move that down a bit, like this, and then put it in. Then the spring won't be in the way. There we go. That's much better. I'll try to hand start this first. And we will. Okay, so the bottom bolt here, I tightened that up as much as I could with my gear wrench, my 17mm gear wrench, and then I ended up tightening it up. I've got a longer 17mm wrench. I couldn't get any room in the spring for my ratchet to do anything with it, so I found the 17mm wrench was the best bet, and it's a long-handled wrench, and it fit just between my muffler and here. So I was able to tighten that up, but I don't have the torque spec on it. I'm assuming it's between 60 and 80 foot-pounds based on the size of it, and probably 80 foot-pounds. So that's what I would give it. The same as your lug nuts on your wheel. It's about the same size. So anyway, I tightened that up as tight as I could get it with the wrench. Alright, and then we just have to put the tire back on, and I got a lot of sand on this, so I'm actually going to quickly blow the sand off of my brakes, and then let all the dust settle, and then come back and put the wheel on. Alright, so now everything's all said and done. We just got to pop the wheel back on. I hand start all these. I never shoot them with the impact gun until they're hand started. Alright, so I just give them a little get the wheel set in properly. Once it's in, I give it a few shots, a couple clicks. Alright, and then I'll tighten it to 80 foot-pounds on the ground. So I'm going to lower the car. I'm going to remove the wheel chocks and go out for a spin. Alright, so that was one of those jobs that should have been really easy, but was really difficult in a way. There was only 3 bolts to take off, but the bolts were in kind of a difficult, awkward position. It was kind of hard to reach. I had to pretty much shimmy my whole body, like my legs, under the car and work on it, sitting up really close to the brakes. So that really sucked. That wasn't comfortable. Normally I sit on a step stool and work on the brakes and stuff like that. So it was far less comfortable. It was quite dirty. When I took the cowl off, I pretty much broke all the clips on the cowl. So in hindsight, I think I would have, because the cowl's sort of a cloth, like an impregnated cloth sort of material, I would have just ripped it up at the top a little bit to give me enough access to get the bolts out. Now I do have some old grommets. I've had a few other Hondas before, so I save all that stuff, and I was able to use some of the older parts. Did fit just fine. Some of the older grommets just fit just fine, which is great. But it's unfortunate that I couldn't get the new grommets out. They all snapped on me, every single one of them. So, in hindsight, I would have just cut the top out and kind of worked at that. So yeah, I got it fixed. I got it done. It works great. It sounds so much nicer. It's nice and smooth now. It doesn't have that awful clunky noise that it had before, so I'm very happy with that. It is relatively easy, but very annoying at the same time. So it's not a super difficult job, but it's one of those annoying jobs, right? It should be so simple, but you'll be cursing the whole way through it. Alright, so I hope this video helped you guys out. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe. And stay tuned for more DIY stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching.